Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are back, man. Finally, we are back. Showtime Forum post game report. Can't tell you how excited I am to see what I saw tonight. After long months of not just being quarantined, but wondering if the NBA was going to come back, we finally have an opportunity to watch the Lakers continue their run towards another championship, of course, led by LeBron James and Anthony Davis. But listen, before we jump into what we're going to jump into, I want to first bring in my brother, bring in one of the just greatest additions we've had to the Showtime Forum family. Of course, you guys, if you listen to the podcast and you already know, him and our brother Chris, who lead the Showtime Forum podcast, but he's going to join us tonight. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to bring in my boy Chaez Pearson. Man, I'm so excited about seeing what he's getting ready to do tonight, and I got to unmute him in a second. But let me go ahead and bring him in. Chaz, what up,
What up?
man?
What up? What up?
Yeah, man, yeah.
Let's go.
Okay, so listen, man,
What
let's
it
get
do,
straight
man?
to it. I don't want to waste people's time. What did you think about tonight? Tell me how it feels to watch basketball again. What are your thoughts, man?
Man, I'm just excited. This team didn't miss a beat. They just went exactly, picked up right where they left off. AD looking good with a sweet turnaround. Jay getting rebounds, shooting threes. LeBron was just LeBron. His shot wasn't on point to start, but as you could see, once he got into a rhythm in the first half, and once he started, getting his feel and getting a lather, going up and down the court, he was good. Had a beautiful lob to Dwight. That was nice. Danny Green he looked like he was in playoff mode. This team they picked up right where they left off, and props to them for staying ready this entire time during the quarantine, and props to the staff and Frank Vogel for keeping everybody sharp. And I really like the way that Vogel took these first games, or I think this first scrimmage, and it's really indicative of how he's gonna play the rest of these scrimmage games in the first 8 games of the regular season. The Lakers only gonna have to need to win only 3 at most of the final 8 games. So it's good, man. I like the way that Vogel really put everything together. But more than anything, I was impressed with AD more than anything. He was awesome. He was dominant. He looked fresh. We've seen AD, with the shoulder, with with his ribs, with his knee even. But obviously he said, I don't just feel 100%, but I am 100%. So props to him for staying ready as well.
Absolutely, man. And I think, what I loved was watching that the team didn't just treat it like a scrimmage. They treated it like it was their first game back. So they had expectations in the roster. Of course, you're seeing people who wouldn't normally play in the minutes that they were playing. But Vogel was very intent on making sure that every situation that presented itself, he gave those players an opportunity to treat it like a real game. So even at the end of the game, without LeBron and AD playing in the second half, you're watching him even make that push. Of course, we lost by 4. But watching him just call timeouts in situational, circumstances and saying, drawing up plays. This is valuable, man, for that bench, who's had some turnover. Obviously, we've had a different bench looking at what we have now versus how we started the season, and of course the loss of Avery Bradley, which we're going to get into a little bit tonight. But being able to watch the Lakers kind of figure out what life is going to look like in this new playoff format, as far as having the players that they have, being able to play in that court. I thought the NBA did an amazing job with the court and how it looked. I don't think it could have looked any better. To be honest with you, I wasn't so much a fan of the crowd noise at first, but as the game kind of progressed, it just
really?
I think part of it is because I know it's not the real thing, and I think it was more mental. But by the second half, I didn't even think about it. It was just natural. And if you go to the Lakers Twitter account, they're posting videos of what it sounds like without the crowd noise. And now by the end of the game, I was
Right.
kind of like, I can kind of flow with this.
It
I'm
sounds
with it.
better. It sounds a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, man. So I was with it, but it was good, man, to see LeBron and AD, and listen, them both putting up double digits in just the first half, and really, you really didn't even see LeBron going full force. You saw him going full speed, but you could see that he was trying to get people involved. He started off with AD in the beginning. It felt very much like the very beginning of the season where he was just feeding AD, and you saw AD doing mid range, and you saw AD doing the post up, and of course, like you said, he was just doing things that just made you feel good. It didn't look like he was hampered by any injuries. Of course, he's already said in some of these post practice reports that he feels 100%, which for us as Laker fans, I think would be the first time we've actually seen AD fully
At
healthy.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, man.
Right.
So
Except for the start of the season. You're right.
yeah, that was pretty much it. I want to get your thoughts. Of course, we know LeBron, we know AD are going to do their thing. Of course, Alex Caruso was out tonight, who normally would have had contributing minutes, and of course, we've already lost Rondo and Avery Bradley. But there are still supporting cast members that I think warrant conversation tonight, and that would be first of all, I think we have to talk about Dion Waiters, who we
Philly
obviously signed.
cheese.
Philly cheese, bro.
Hey.
And my man was back, and he wasted no time. He jumped right in and was like, "You guys called me to do one thing, and I'm going to do this thing." And he shot the ball tonight and looked comfortable.
Looked real comfortable. Came out, did his thing. First possession, took him one-on-one on the right wing with the step back for his first jumper as a Laker, and made some good plays in the second half as well. I really liked the way that Dion Waiters looked. Had that huge three to close out the first half. And
Yeah.
I tweeted out, Rob Pelinka, you beautiful man. Thank you for signing Dion Waiters. I know Rob Pelinka going, switching up his style a little bit with his hair looking like Pat Riley a little bit, but he's doing his thing. He's doing his thing by picking up J.R. Smith, obviously with help of Rich Paul and, the number one super agent really in the business almost right now, or the most famous guy. So, but Dion Waiters, I was really, really impressed with him. It was good to see J.R. Smith get back and get his first couple buckets in over 2 years, obviously, since he hasn't played since the Cleveland Cavalier team in 2018. So, even KCP, I really liked the way, even though he rolled his ankle in the first quarter, I think it was, and went back to the locker room, I really liked the way that he started the game and the way that he was running and moving up and down the court, having active hands on the wing. I was just really impressed with how sharp these guys look for just a first scrimmage right out the gate. And only, these guys have only practiced together for the last, 2 weeks? Even before they left and went to Orlando, they didn't have any practices as a team, right? They just had the individual workouts when they were getting tested either every day or every other day. So I was really blown away with how sharp they were. Everybody from LeBron, AD, I'll be honest, Kuz didn't look as sharp as some other guys, but he still got his. And it was good to see even THT and the young guys get out there to close out the game. So, but Dion, it was the one that stood out for me the most. I mean, that guy's he's gonna hit a lot of clutch shots and keep us in a lot of games if we're coming from behind. But I think this squad is gonna pretty much be leading the way in every series except for maybe even the conference final or the finals. If and when we make it far.
Absolutely. And you bringing up Kuzma, obviously that's been one of the most polarizing names when it comes to Laker fandom. Is trying to figure out, is this guy really as good as what we anticipated him to be, and we're still waiting for him to make those steps. And it's always weird with Kuz, and we're going to get to some of these questions that are in the chat. Chaz, you can't see them yet, but I'm going to ask you some of these questions. But it's really strange to see, when you look at his stat line versus Dion's stat line, and obviously these stat lines don't mean much, on the first game back after having months off. But you'll see them; they both scored 9 points. But you'll see where Kuz added 7 rebounds, and it's so weird because when you're watching Kuz, we're so accustomed to seeing him as a scorer. It's we forget there's 2 perennial all-star forwards that are ahead of him on the roster, and they don't necessarily need him to score as much, especially with the addition of J.R. Smith and Dion Waiters. You don't really need him. So is he able to do the other things that we need him to do. Is 9 points and 7 rebounds something that you would say is adequate for a bench role player to add to the mix?
It's 7 rebounds, yes. 9 points, not so much. You probably want him around maybe 16. If we can get him 15 plus, that'd be great, especially in the playoffs. I know he's reports are that Vogel said that he's looked very, very good in practice in the weeks leading up to this game. So I wasn't really looking at his scoring more than anything. I was just looking at the way that he was, calling out defensive assignments, getting to the right spot. Because Kuz is always going to score. He's a natural born scorer. Give him enough minutes and enough touches, he'll put up. We've seen him put up 41 points against Detroit in 3 quarters. We've seen him put up 39 points against OKC without LeBron and AD out earlier this season. So I'm not really worried about Kuz, to be honest. I know he's the polarizing figure, and I know there's a lot of guys. There's even there's a Kuz is trash, Twitter handle and all kinds of stuff. I know Laker fans just really like to get on him. I mean, they're getting on him just as much as they were getting on KCP to start the season when he was shooting air balls and airball layups to start the season. And now look at KCP; he's in the starting lineup. Pretty much for the top playoff team in the West, if not in the entire league. So I'm not really worried about Kuz, but I was just, I just there was a couple things where I thought he could tighten up a little bit more. But all in all, just as a squad, man, I was impressed, and it was just refreshing to see basketball back. Man, I was just excited, jumping up and down just to see my first game, and like when AD turned around and hit the first 2 jumpers, I was like, okay, all right.
Man, oh man, yeah, he looked sharp, man. Danny Green looked great early on in the game, man. Looked like he was coming out, wasn't afraid to shoot that corner 3. I was a little perturbed by the defense and whole, but one of the things they talked about, especially with these post game reports, they were talking about how people like J.R. Smith, who obviously can score, is really trying to figure out his place in the defensive rotations, and this is where we really miss Avery Bradley, not just because of his ability to pick up full court, but just understanding defensive rotations, who's going to cover who. And really the Mavericks made us look crazy from the 3-point line tonight. Seth Curry looked like Steph Curry tonight. And it mainly was because we're just trying to get our defensive rotations on the perimeter correct. And I think over the next few games, probably after we get past this first series, God willing, man, we'll have that kind of gel going. It obviously won't be as strong without Avery. And then if we ever introduce Rondo back into the mix, I don't know what that's going to look like as far as defensive rotations, especially at the guard position. But let's get to some of these questions. I want to just introduce you. So you probably have heard these names.
Oh, yeah.
A long-term follower, Al Sanchez. He says, hello, good to see you back. And the Lakers, Al, it's good to see you. D, I missed y'all. D, we missed you as well. He said, Al Sanchez said, I was hoping you guys would be on. Of course, we are on tonight.
Always.
We would not miss this.
Oh, yeah.
For anything. Laker Metropolis. Obviously, this one, he's a veteran right here. Yo, what up? Feels good to have Laker hoops. Here we go.
We back, baby.
We back. Al says this. He goes, Waiters looks like what we've been missing. And I guess the question I would pose to you is, what exactly does Dion Waiters fill in the absence of a Rondo and an Avery Bradley? What are we primarily asking Dion to do?
Score. Not only score, but score off your own dribble. Create your own shot without bogging down the offense and not allowing guys to get to their spot. So what Dion is going to do is when the play breaks down, when it's 6-7 seconds left in the shot clock, and we're in our set, and the ball's moving, and the opposing team is playing good defense, he's going to wave that pick off and go one-on-one like he did the first possession, give you a 1-2 in and out, go middle, give you that jab, step back, and then try and drain that jumper. So that's what he's going to do. That's just something that we just don't really have. The closest person that can do that really is LeBron. Nobody else is really going to go one-on-one like that and really break down the defender off the dribble. Kuz can, but his stuff is more so off the pick, off the off the pass, coming off the curl, stuff like that. But Dion specifically, and just to see JR too. JR not as much because he's older. And Dion, just has a little bit more juice in those legs to go one-on-one. But J.R. Smith brings an element of that as well. But, man, it's refreshing to see, even though we don't have a guy that's going to pick up 94 feet like Avery Bradley does or did, I should say. It's really, really refreshing to have Dion Waiters, just somebody that can break down somebody one-on-one if the play breaks down to get you a bucket, or just pull up at the end of the shot clock or at the buzzer to end the first half. I mean, it's just something that we just haven't seen all season.
Yeah, and I think it's very imperative just to remind people that when we signed Dion Waiters, we still had Avery Bradley and we were still making a push. Dion Waiters was kind of like that fill-in spot. JR was signed in the absence really of Avery Bradley, but Dion was supposed to supplement. So his job, for some people I saw on Twitter talking about he wouldn't have Avery Bradley's defense. Dion was not signed for that primarily. Avery Bradley at that point was still playing, still contributing, obviously at a high clip. So Dion was really like what you just said, Chaez. He was supposed to come in and score. That's really it. We're not looking for you to make amazing passes. We're looking for you to come in, contribute off the rock, and create your own dribble. Like you said, Kuz, they really wanted him to be that. He has not really mastered that. And I know there was a lot of comparisons between him and Jason Tatum. But Dion Waiters is a whole separate beast, man. He does things that may not even look pretty, but he looks so comfortable doing it that even when he gets to the end of a clock at the end of the half and he shoots that three, you kind of already know what's going in. In fact, if you watch the replay, you'll see Kuzma on the other end of the floor. As soon as Dion took the shot, his hands went
up.
Because he knew.
That's it. Philly cheese, they know what's up.
They know what's up, man. So my girl Patrice says Dion made a strong case today. I know it was only a scrimmage, but he was very, very focused, which has been one of the cons when you look at his scouting report, is that he tends to lose focus, not only on basketball game, but just in life. We've kind of seen his record, as in regards to off the court issues. But one thing you cannot take away from this man is he knows what to do with the rock, man. So he made his case today.
He put you on that Waiters Island.
Put him on that Waiters Island, man. Here we go. It says Al also says we need a guy like Waiters to open it up for LeBron and AD. We were missing a deadly 3-point shooter. And the Lakers going into tonight, before the season ended, they were ranked 17th, I believe, in 3-point efficiency. Mm-hmm. So they were right in the middle of the pack. But unfortunately, in the league that we're in today, middle of the pack, you might as well be at the bottom of the pack.
Right.
And you saw today, Seth Curry was one of the free agents that a lot of Laker fans wanted us to pick up. Obviously, we didn't get him. But he shot very well from the three tonight.
He was on fire. He was 6 for 6 at one point.
Which is, when you think about that, if you think about AD being in the middle, LeBron bringing up the rock, and just having a Seth Curry-like person on the side. But what I will say is this. One thing that you do have in Danny Green is an understanding of where to be to catch that rock, which is something different than just being able to catch and shoot, knowing where to be so that the spacing is optimized and the most efficient for LeBron. He can make the best decision. Something that JR also brings to the table is understanding LeBron's passing lanes and just knowing where to be. Actually means just as much as being able to shoot the three. Because you can be able to shoot the three like Seth was doing tonight, but if you don't understand LeBron and you don't understand where to be, and we've seen players who didn't understand where to be, then you're going to find issues. Brandon Ingram was one of the people who was a tremendous shooter, obviously showed that this year, but had issues with LeBron on the floor with him understanding where the spacing was and where he's most efficient when it comes down to catching and shooting. Kira Gardner says he had some great lob passes, and I'm not sure who that was. I saw lots of lobs tonight. But didn't it feel good to see that again, to see lobs?
I mean, LeBron, she's got to be talking about LeBron, because the lob from LeBron to Dwight was great. It was perfectly timed. But the one that probably flew under the radar was the lob from KCP with the left hand to, I believe, is Anthony Davis. With his offhand, that flew under the radar. But LeBron, he also had a lob to Kuz that was perfectly placed, and Kuz just came through and smacked it down, and and that was that. So lots of lob passes. When you got people like Dwight and JaVale and AD on the floor, even LeBron as well. I mean, you're going to get at least 5 or 6, 7 lobs, or at least lob attempts in the game. Yeah. Even Porzingis even had a pretty cool lob tonight. So I mean, it was good. Man, I know it's a Lakers show, but I mean, man, it was just good to see back and forth, up and down. Yesterday, I was in heaven. You know, I haven't seen anything. You know, I know we didn't play yesterday, but today,
Mm-hmm.
man, one more week. We got one more week until it's the real thing.
Yep.
But the cool part really about it is that like you see LeBron's face. He's not
Mm.
treating it like a, a preseason game or a scrimmage or just the first bubble game. He's making sure that I got him, you got him, you pick up him, calling out assignments, everything like that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it was perfect.
Yeah. And they brought that up how on every play that LeBron was calling out defensive assignments. So he was not only a point guard on the offense, but he was a point guard on the defense. And that just, I mean, for people who are trying to understand why there's so much faith in what LeBron does, these are things that other teams just don't have. That you don't have a not only a multiple time champion, but just the basketball IQ to be able to understand the floor, know where to pass, know how to call out defensive assignments. It's just you're not going to see that. It probably in our lifetime, you're never going to see that again. It's so Kobe-esque to just understand the nuances of the game the way he does. And there's nothing more valuable when you get to the playoffs than understanding how to dissect the team. Because when you understand that, you're able to take even your weaknesses and be able to exploit your strengths at a greater level and be able to hide your weaknesses and be able to do what you got to do. So I just want to say it. We have LeBron and AD. I don't understand how
He's
there's
he's had
any better two.
he's had the right mindset, even going all the way back to September, right,
Hmm.
of last year, going into that first preseason game against the Warriors when he threw that pocket pass to AD and when getting everybody excited and had the Lakers sending out that tweet saying, "We put the league on notice. You've been warned," you know, whatever that tweet was that made rounds. It's the same mentality that he's had all the way since September that's been indicative of the preseason to the regular season to the bubble now to the postseason, and hopefully all the way to the finals.
Yeah, yeah, man. Okay, so someone says this. This is Fisticuff says, "Can we just admit now that Kuz was a miss for the Lakers?" Here it comes. You knew it was coming. You knew it was coming. Did we
Man,
miss? At what point do we say, okay, Kuz, you ain't it? Is it? Do we wait till the season finishes out? Do we look, through the rest of these playoffs and just look for moments that he may shine, or are we looking for him to turn a corner in any one of these games?
so let me just address the miss factor. A 28th pick in the draft, I believe he was, essentially was the throw-in from the D'Angelo Russell trade to get
Mm,
from up under the Mozgov deal. So when you pick a player that low in the draft, that turns out to be pretty much the third wheel on a championship team, that can never be a miss. So let's just
wow.
start there. But in terms of him being Jason Tatum, Brandon Ingram, that guy essentially, I still have hope, and I think he will be that type of player eventually. He just has to get the minutes and the touches. If he's
Mm,
coming off the bench, he's just a completely different player. That's just it is what it is. When you're playing against I should say, two of the top five arguably players in the league. I mean, you're going to be that third wheel, and he's not quite as good as Chris Bosh was at the time, but he's going to be good enough, and he's going to be able to get us to a point to where we'll be able to win a lot of games within the playoffs, and he's going to have a huge role when it comes down to it, especially within the Western Conference Finals and the finals, if and when we make it that far. But as far as Kuz being a miss, I'll never admit that, because where we got him in the draft and given the circumstances, you have to think back to the origin. I know this is only his third season, right? So you can only go back so far, but I'll never admit that he was a miss because of where we got him in the draft overall.
yeah, yeah, and I think one thing to also point out is that no other player from his class is in the position that he's in right now, where he has two players playing the same position that he plays essentially at the forward position, who are both top five players in the league. So trying to find your identity in a space like that is just vastly different. I don't think people understand how hard it is to to be the guy who we saw in summer league, or be the guy who we saw when he first played, him and Lonzo and Ingram, where there really was no alpha. It was just a bunch of kids getting out there and doing their thing. To now you have two huge superstars who come in out of nowhere and
Mm-hmm.
essentially uproot your position, change the way the position is played in total. So before with Luke Walton, even the way the forward position was played had to change when you introduced LeBron James, because now LeBron comes and he runs point forward, which is
Plays a
completely
completely
different.
different way. Yeah.
Exactly, and you're asked to come in and you're asked to do something on the second unit that you're just not accustomed to. Now, I'm not making excuses for him. There are just some plays he should make, but for the most part, the way I look at him is just the way you said it. He was not something that we had targeted initially. It was something that we were able to get as a blessing, to thank God, get underneath out of that Mozgov contract, and be able to add in a little extra spice with the pick, man. And so he has contributed. Let me also bring this back up. Before LeBron, we had Kuz. And we have to remember that he kind of helped us at least have a little bit of excitement about Laker basketball before we
Right.
got to this championship run. So we don't want to forget where we came from, where it came to Kuz. Now, to be honest, I don't know what it looks like for a contract extension. They asked him this question earlier today, and he was like, I'm not really worried about it. I'm going to get paid regardless. That attitude, I love the confidence. Don't necessarily think is going to be from the Lakers, but we'll see. But at the same time, he's who we have right now. He's been a solid contributor in sparks and in moments. And as far as I'm concerned, he's wearing that jersey. I'm gonna ride with him. And I've
I don't
rode
want
through
to.
worse.
I don't want to see. Yeah, we really have. We haven't seen a playoff game in what 7 years, over 7 years now,
Jesus.
and the first one that we're going to see is going to be in a bubble. But I just want to say this really quick about Kuz. I know overall that he's not doing some of the things that we envision him doing, but you got to take into account the type of team that we're on, how young he is, how old the rest of the other guys are, and how much experience they have, and just where he fits in overall. If
Yeah.
LeBron wasn't on this team, if Anthony Davis wasn't on this team, if it was still the young guys, Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, B.I., Kuz, and whoever else, I'm pretty sure that Kuz would pretty much be in that conversation with B.I. and Jason Tatum, because he's
Yep.
going to get the minutes and the touches and have a coach that has the confidence in him. Not to say that Vogel doesn't, but he just has other guys that have already been there and done that in terms of certain things where Vogel doesn't have to coach certain ways. And
Mm-hmm.
he's just going to ride with those guys a little bit more than he will with Kuz, because thankfully we don't have time to waste. LeBron, after this season, LeBron is only under contract for one more guaranteed year. Okay. That other year is an option, his option. So
Wow.
we better hope we sign Anthony Davis. And I know we don't really like to think about the future too much. The future's looking bright because we don't see this breaking up anytime soon. But at the same time, we need somebody that's going to do it right and do it right now. And unfortunately, Kuz doesn't have that playoff experience. So we're going to have to ride with guys like KCP, Danny Green, JaVale McGee, Dwight Howard, so on and so forth, to be able to carry up the load to get us there. So, but I'm never going to give up on Kuz, even when, he has those bad slumps. I'm just not. I don't want to see him play for another team, get the big money, and come in the Staples Center and torch us. I'm not about that, because LeBron's not going to play. LeBron's not going to play forever. I mean, I know he seems like Iron Man, and there's no slowing down, but Father Time is undefeated, and it's going to catch up to him at some point. And whether LeBron plays with his son or not in the next 4 years, Kuz is definitely going to probably have close to 8 to 10 more years left even after that. So let's just pump our brakes really on that.
There you go. There you go. And you brought up JaVale McGee. Shout out to him, man. 13 points tonight, 2 rebounds. Listen, he did his JaVale-ish things today, and I appreciate it, man. Dwight Howard, solid contributor tonight. 7 rebounds, 9 points. And you love to see that from your bigs, man. I want to get to, there's a couple more questions, but I do want to ask ask about just that second half. Somebody brought up a point that I will disagree with, but I'm going to read it first. It says Frank Vogel needs to make better coaching decisions when it comes to second halves. And I know, and that's from B-Mode. B-Mode, I know you're not basing that just off of tonight. I know you're basing that off of the season, which I completely understand. I'll say tonight, I was really happy that he threw in everybody in the second half. I was excited
Everybody.
to see
Yeah.
Devontae Catcook. I was obviously THT. And it was so good to see, man, him have his struggles and have his highlight moments because you're watching a young kid who has an extremely bright future uh, go through the paces of learning how to play in the NBA. I just want you to think about this. Like, he's pretty much been a South Bay Laker until playoff time. And now it's playoff time, and it's very possible that he could be a contributor in some of these games. And to watch him cut to the cup the way he was and doing layups the way he
With
did.
that reverse. With
I
that
mean,
reverse. Yeah.
and then,
Yeah.
you see other plays where he completely airballs or he throws a pass completely out of bounds.
He tried to do that no look, and it went out of bounds.
Yeah.
They're playing like a straight rookie. But, that's all. I'd rather him do it in a scrimmage or these 8 regular season games than in, game 5 of the semifinals. So he's going to get some run. He's going to get some run. He's looking good, and I think he's going to get some run, especially with Rondo out. But we'll see how he performs. He has to take advantage of his moments when he gets them.
Exactly. And we also have to understand that we're playing the Mavericks tonight, which I think is a really good warm-up game. But our first official game of the season is going to be against the Clippers, and that's next week. And so a lot of what you're seeing tonight, you're obviously not going to put a Costas in the fourth quarter when you're playing the Clippers, or you're not probably going to see THT in there in the third quarter or fourth quarter. So just to address what you were saying there, B-Mode, is that you really want to think about how many minutes your starters are going to get. LeBron and AD are going to get close to between 38 and 40 minutes for the most part. You're going to see them on the floor almost the entire game. In short spurts, they'll come off. And so because of that changes the dynamic of how other players will be efficient. And so Frank Vogel is really figuring out which players are going to be good. Notice tonight, and man, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, but tonight he had a moment where he had Dwight Howard at the 5, and then he had JR, Dion Waiters, THT. I mean, he just threw in all the shooters.
And Quinn Cook.
And Quinn Cook and said, go for it, man. Just go for it. And you watched it, and you're like, this is different. We're not used to a roster or a lineup full of shooters who just really just ISO ball and shoot. But it's good to have it, right?
It's good to have it. And it's good to have these young guys get experience that otherwise they wouldn't have. It was pretty much the South Bay Lakers and J.R. Smith and Dion Waiters out there. So, I mean, it's good to get those guys some run. I really liked the way that they competed at the end. Didn't like the fact that they gave up so many buckets. Boban was killing us with, I mean, my gosh, with the one hand, with the fake back and the 3. I mean, this guy, and he was clogging up the paint. That fourth quarter was Boban's quarter. But I'll say I really did like the way that those guys competed, our young guys. And watch out for K-Cock. That guy, that kid can really play. I watched a ton of his games for the South Bay Lakers, THT as well. If K-Cock can get rolling and, God forbid one of these big guys go down, I'm glad that he's on the roster and he's in the bubble because, he may not have the experience, but he's going to play hard and he's a big body that can move players inside in order to get around. So, props to him.
Yeah, and he has like Montrezl Harrell type energy when it comes to crashing those boards. He hasn't really got his hands yet together, just being able to snatch down boards as well. But like he is not afraid of being aggressive in the middle. You know what I mean? And I think that's gonna benefit us in the long run. At some point, I feel it, man. I feel like there's gonna be a moment where he's gonna shine in these playoffs, and it's gonna solidify that he's a part of our future long term. Al Sanchez says something that I think we all believe it, but I do want to know how much you believe this will be a factor. But he goes, the secret weapon didn't play tonight, and I think we all know who that is. The Caruso will pick up D that we're missing. So I want to know what you think about that.
I was just about to say that. I was just about to say that. We did all this, and our hero, Caruso, he wasn't even here. He wasn't even playing. So, I mean, for this guy overall, I mean, he's a smart player. He's a defensive player. He's a team player more than anything. He's an energy guy, like Dwight. He's pretty much how Dwight comes in and as an energy guy on the inside is what Caruso does for the perimeter on the offensive and the defensive end in terms of setting up his teammates and just playing smart ball overall. So I was really disappointed. Kind of like when I got the Kershaw news, how Kershaw is going to get scratched from opening day. Even though we got a game coming up, our opening day game comes up in a few minutes, in like 10-15. So y'all stick around with us for a little bit longer. But but to have Caruso get scratched, the day of the first game, I know that was pretty disappointing to Laker Nation. But we can't be too mad at the guy. I mean, he stayed in the bubble and skipped his sister's wedding just so that way he could win the ring and make sure that he brought it home for the city.
Yeah.
So I can't I can't fault the guy too much. He's got pretty good leeway with me, and I know these games don't really count at the end of the day. I know he's going to get on the floor probably Saturday or Monday against the who do we play on Saturday? The Wizards. I believe it's the Wizards. Yeah, I believe it's the Wizards on Saturday, and then the Magic on Monday at noon Pacific Standard Time. So, yeah, I mean, there's plenty of opportunities. Luckily for us, we literally don't have to win more than 3 games of these final 8 games. So Vogel can literally treat the regular season, these final 8 games, like the preseason, and get all the guys involved, get him that experience, give him that run, and then he can go to 8 or 9 guys in his rotation when the playoffs start, and then pick and choose who he wants to give certain spots and moments to, depending on who's in, who's out, and who's hurt, who's nicked up, stuff like that. So overall, we're in a great spot. We looked just as good as I watched the Milwaukee Bucks earlier today. They looked great. I watched the Clippers yesterday, even without Chaez and Beverly. They looked great, and we look great too. So it's all up for grabs, and I can't wait, man. We just getting started.
We just getting started, and this is going to be probably one of the more entertaining playoffs. I know the situation is completely different than anything we've seen in NBA history, but the rest that these teams have gotten, how tight the race was, especially in the West, going into this time, it's sparking up to be probably one of the most memorable ones we would have, all circumstances considered. So I'm gonna get to some more of these questions. Donovan Bryant, what do we think of Kuz? I think we addressed that already. Here we go. 24K Petty. Good to see you. That's my cousin. She said, welcome back. Our brother Adel Toro. Hey, listen, he goes, DeVon and Chaez duo equals fire. I want to just point this out. Let me get this off the screen real quick. I'm wearing a three-peat shirt. And Chaez, you got on something right now too.
Yep. Shout out Adel. He coming up with some hot stuff, some fire. Can't beat LA. The brand, the 3PT. I got that one in white. Shout out Javier, aka Golden Knight of Showtime Forum. I'm rocking your stuff right now. Lake Show.
There it is, baby.
Coming into the bubble. So I mean, we rep our own around here. Go to can'tbeatla.com, cb-la.com. To get some of this gear that we're rocking. I have a bunch of Adel and Javi stuff, so I'll be rocking it on every post-game show that I do with you because I want my guys to get nothing but shine. Go ahead and copy some merch if you're really about Laker Nation. They make some quality stuff, and if you like the shirt like I'm rocking, or like DeVon's rocking right there with the 3PT, go cop that.
Cop it, man, and just make sure that you guys check the Showtime Forum Twitter feed. We have plenty of their information already posted on there and retweeted. So if you're looking for that merch, hop on it as quickly as you can because that stuff has been going like hotcakes, man. Limited time. So I also want to get to this. This is great, and this is a great segue to kind of just point into this. I know it feels a little weird with the NBA coming back, but let's not forget that even while the COVID and the coronavirus thing has been happening, and it's still happening as of right now, there was a huge push for the social injustice, and part of even what you saw on the court tonight, seeing Black Lives Matter on the court, first time in NBA history that you're seeing such a huge, not political statement, but a social injustice statement placed there. And they said tonight that LeBron opened up the press conference saying that he was calling for justice for Breonna Taylor, and one of those cops arrested. And we just got to just keep pointing this out. You're going to hear this over and over and over again in post games. You're going to hear it during post practice interviews. You're going to hear this a lot from Showtime Forum, that social injustice is still as huge of an issue in this country as the pandemic is. And for a lot of people, they want NBA players to stop talking about it and things like that. I just want to get you guys ready. You have to get prepared to hearing these statements, because while they're playing, there is still a concentrated effort to push up against these things that have essentially been overlooked for decades when it comes to the things of social injustice and racism. So it's good to see LeBron speaking out. Of course, we heard Caruso speaking about that and said, listen, if you're asking me about anything outside of my sister's wedding, he's like, I'm going to answer it with the same thing, Breonna Taylor.
I'm just
He's
here
going
so
to
I
be
don't
bringing
get
that up.
Breonna Taylor, the same way Marshawn Lynch treated that interview that he did. I'm just here so I don't get fined. It's the same energy that these NBA players are having with calling out for justice for Breonna Taylor, justice for Ahmaud Arbery, justice for George Floyd. I mean, justice for any and everybody that has come across, even if you're not Black, even if you're white, Hispanic, Asian, we're all in this together. So this is, even though basketball is back and we're happy and we're excited, we're getting baseball back at the same time. Football training camp is about to start back up.
Wow.
Even MLS soccer is back, and hockey is about to gear up. I know we're getting excited. Social injustice is still happening in this country. Look at what's happening in Portland right now. The president is sending in federal troops into certain parts of the country. So even though we're distracted a little bit with games and with other things that are going on within our country, with testing, with hotspots going on within our country, kids going back to school supposedly with not as much direction, there's a lot happening in our country right now, but we can't take our eye off the ball, because this is the same thing that we've been fighting for over 60 years. Same thing Martin Luther King was fighting for. I know a lot of people will bring up the subject that, oh, wow, we've had a Black president since then, or be happy that we have Black senators and Black congressmen and women and Black judges and whatever the case may be, until we put legislation and pen to paper and force a president's hand to make killing unarmed Black people and people of color, or anybody in general, a federal hate crime, then we haven't done our job yet. And that's what we're fighting for. And that's why LeBron is starting off his post-game conference with saying justice for Breonna Taylor, someone who was killed in her bed without having even shot a gun, sold a drug, anything. She was one of our own. She was one of our own frontline workers. If she was still alive, she would be carrying those people from their houses or from wherever they are to the hospital to make sure that they get coronavirus care or any kind of medical care. She was an EMT. So she was a frontline worker, and justice for Breonna Taylor. That's all I can say.
There it is. There it is, man. There it is. So I know, that's just to prep people in case you go, I don't want to tune in for that kind of stuff. I'm just letting you know now. We stand against social injustice. We stand against racism. We stand against anti-Semitic statements. We stand against it. And, we crazy enough. Yeah, we crazy enough to talk about it. So that it is what it is. So listen, I want to get to a last few of these, and I have a question for you about what's coming up. Adele said, I thought Caruso was a break-in case of emergency player, wasn't he? According to familiar sources. Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about Caruso and what he's supposed to be, and what the bottom line is. He has solidified his place. And even tonight, we felt his absence even in a scrimmage. And it really felt weird to see him in a polo sitting on the sideline. It just felt really weird to see that. But it's good to know he's coming back, and we're not going to miss him for too long. Ryan, I'm so excited, y'all. Ryan, we're excited right along with you. Al Sanchez, we're in a constitutional crisis. Yep. And he goes, kids are still in cages. Absolutely, man. And it's not just our prayers that are going out to him. We're putting action behind that. And I'm really excited about seeing what's going to come out of this. And I know it seems ugly now, but anytime you get to this level, change is bound to happen. So now we have Saturday coming up. We're playing against the Magic, who obviously has already played a game as well. I believe they played one of our first scrimmages back was against it was Orlando versus, I think, the Clippers.
The Clippers.
So, So going into Saturday's game, it's obviously going to be different. It's going to be 9 o'clock in the morning. Well, really noon for them in the bubble. What should we look for? What should we expect? What do we want to see in this next scrimmage?
So what we really want to see, number one, is Caruso, if he's right. He's the only guy that hasn't played yet. Look for Markieff Morris because he just cleared quarantine today as well. He was on the bench, but obviously he hasn't gotten in any work, being that he just came out of his hotel room this morning for the first time. So, look for him as well. But also look for rotations to start to, maybe take shape a little bit. I know Vogel's going to experiment a lot in the second half, but look for rotations and normal rotations to come together in that first and second quarter. And also look for Anthony Davis to just continue to dominate more than anything. LeBron is going to be LeBron. We absolutely know what we're going to get from LeBron. As far as Anthony Davis, he hasn't played in the playoffs just yet as a Laker. So I'm keeping a very, very, very close eye on Anthony Davis. I know some people are, more hung up on Kuz or hung up on, KCP since he's taken Avery Bradley's spot. It's still the star players in this league that are really going to move the needle more than anything. And because we are going to know what we're going to get from LeBron, I'm keeping a sharp eye on Anthony Davis, and he was by far the best guy on the floor tonight, including LeBron James, Kristaps Porzingis, and Luka Doncic. AD was the best on the floor in the minutes that he played. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do the next game and keeping that momentum going.
Yep. Yeah, and I agree with that, man. And I want to just remind people, too, this is different than preseason. I know these are scrimmages, and we're kind of treating it like preseason, but there's only 3 games, and then the regular season starts. And so there's a couple of things that are going to be balanced in that. Number one, keeping players healthy. You saw tonight, Anthony and LeBron only played half of the game. And to be honest, I'm fine if they don't even play against the Wizards at all, to be honest with you. But just trying to keep players
like
healthy.
JV team yesterday.
Yeah, they didn't look good, man. But and they made it to the bubble. The East obviously has a whole different setup and how the records are working and who's going to fight for that. But one thing you also want to look out for is just when you're watching the Laker games, looking for the same things that Chaez just said. You're looking for the cohesion. You're looking for a lot of that stuff. But also look at these other teams. For instance, Dallas Mavericks tonight are the 7th seed, and there's still kind of a balance. There's a small chance they could end up being the 8th seed, which means they could end up being the people that we see in the first round. So just watching how some of these teams are playing, and then just evaluating. Obviously, it's going to be hard to tell who's really going to be able to match up with who until the matchup happens. But just watching, for instance, watching the Clippers the other night, like you said, seeing them without Beverly and seeing them without Trez and seeing how fluid they were lets us know that this is not the same Clipper team that we beat before the season ended. There's a little bit more cohesion going on. Not sure what's going on there, if they've just been practicing more or whatever. But these are things to look out for, and we're going to have to make adjustments as series goes on. And so I'm looking to see how do we handle adjustments in game. One thing that Vogel has been great with all year has been coming into the half and then making some sort of adjustment. We've seen where they've come out in the first quarter. Normally they get down by a certain amount, fight their way back by the second quarter, and then they come out of the half, and that's normally where you see them make their run, make their adjustments. And let's also not forget that the Lakers have been playing excellent away from Staples Center. And even though there's home and away, we're technically away from Staples Center. And no team has handled the road better than the Lakers. You're seeing it on the bench. You saw it tonight, the way the players were responding to simple things, rookies getting lay-ins, watching lobs go up and watching how the bench reacts. There's a cohesion that's happening that does affect how they play on the court. So watching that and watching how that's affecting players and those adjustments. So we only have 3 games. Saturday, as we said, at 9 o'clock your guys' time, I'm in Houston, so it'll be 11 my time. We play against the Orlando Magic, and then, of course, on the 27th, we play against the Wizards. And then after that, it's really just about the record. We only need to really win 3 games, to be honest. We have the Clippers, the Raptors, the Jazz, the Thunder, the Rockets. And that first set of games, it could be a little bit of a test. The last 3, the Kings, the Nuggets, the Pacers, I don't expect much out of that. But the Clippers, the Raptors, the Jazz, the Thunder, and the Rockets are going to be a good test for us. We haven't seen what the Rockets look like with a lighter James Harden who's rested and not blowing all his gas out before the end of the season. We're waiting to see that. The Raptors have been a force. They beat us before. And, of course, the Jazz, they're a little up and down, but they definitely have a good measuring stick for us. So I'm looking forward to seeing how we walk into August, man.
I mean, overall, I really just want the Lakers to win that first game against the Clippers. Here's why. Because mathematically, if the Lakers beat the Clippers in that first game, that one game counts as two, technically. Why? Because it's a double, because it gives them a loss and gives us a win and creates that separation just that much, right? So that way we don't, not that we'll lollygag going into the playoffs, because we got to keep the same championship mentality, but technically we can take our foot off the gas a little bit and allow Vogel a little bit less pressure, to where he can tinker with things and fine tune some things going into the playoffs just that much more, and getting Anthony Davis and LeBron just that much more, a little bit more rest going into the playoffs as well. So I'm okay with going full board on that first regular season game, because it means that much more. And also when we do, face the Clippers, because I'm pretty sure the Lakers and the Clippers will make it to the Western Conference Finals. The Mavericks or the Rockets are going to give the Clippers a hell of a first round series. Either way, whether it be the Mavericks at the 7 seed, or if the Rockets, slip down to the 7 seed, which they likely won't. But if they do, either way, that series is going 6 or 7. But I think the Clippers and the Lakers will both make it to the Western Conference Finals. And if the last time we face the Clippers, we have their number, and overall get the split between how many times that we've seen them over the course of the season, right? We've already seen them 3 times, lost twice, won once. We could win one more, give us the split and the mental edge going into the playoffs, and gives us that much more leeway to have the flexibility to do what we need to do roster-wise, rotation-wise, and rest-wise going into the playoffs.
There it is. There it is, man. It has been great. I have a couple more things here. Our brother Ray, El Babone, man, it's good to see him. He goes, good to see you back in the swing of things. Looky.
Hey.
Yeah, we're back, man, and really excited, man. It's been a good first post game show back, man. And once again, I'm just super excited to have my brother Chaez on here, man. You guys are going to be seeing him a lot. Also going to be bringing in sometimes on a 3-man weave, man, bringing in some more of my other brothers coming in from Showtime Forum. So you're going to see a lot of faces popping up, okay? So just make sure that you're doing all of the necessary things to keep us going. Make sure you're following us on Twitter. Make sure you're following us on Instagram. And Chaez, why don't you go ahead and shout out the podcast, man? Let us know what's going on with that and what's going on with the next post.
Yo, so we just dropped a podcast yesterday. Me and Chris Camello are doing our Showtime Forum podcast. You could tune in every Wednesday at noon, is around the time that we drop the podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you may get your podcast. Record every Monday night, and even send out some clips every Friday and over the weekend as well. But we talk about everything Lakers and everything NBA. Same thing that we're talking about on this show. You're going to get at least a full hour, if not a little bit more, of straight Laker knowledge and straight NBA knowledge, gearing up for this bubble and this playoff run. So follow me at Chaez Pearson on Twitter. Follow DeVon. Follow at Showtime Forum as well, where you can get all your Laker news and get some pretty cool merch at the same time too.
There it is. And lastly, I can't. There's a man behind the scenes who's posting on Twitter as we speak during the post-game show, Jonathan Watson, who always rides for us, man. We call him our hype man. He also has a podcast as well. Jonathan, make sure you shout that out on the Showtime Forum account. I love you guys, man. Chaez, I'm gonna check you on Saturday, man. Hopefully we see each other. If not, you know what I mean? And let's look for a W on this next one, though, yeah?
Saturday morning. Let's get it, y'all. Laker Nation, we in here.